Question 1. Do you like chatting with friends?
Yes, definitely. I'd say my friends sometimes understand me even better than my parents or siblings, so it feels natural to share my thoughts and feelings with them. I feel like they really get me. They also share their ideas and experiences with me, which I often find really interesting, so our conversations are rarely boring. We can talk for hours if time allows. Sometimes when we travel together, we even stay up all night chatting nonstop. Those moments are really memorable and help strengthen our bond. I also find that talking to friends helps me relieve stress and see things from different perspectives, which I really value.
Question 2. What do you usually chat about with friends?
I'd say my friends and I have a lot in common, so we can talk about almost anything. We often chat about our daily lives, recent events, our relationships with people around us, and even our pets. Sometimes we also turn to each other for advice. For example, the other day I felt like I was at an important crossroads in my life, and I wasn't sure which direction to take, so I talked to my friends about it. They shared their thoughts on my strengths and weaknesses, as well as their opinions on the options I had. Even though I haven't made up my mind yet, I really appreciate having them, because they help me see things from different perspectives.
Question 3. Do you prefer to chat with a group of people or with only one friend?
I definitely prefer chatting with just one friend. I find it much easier to have a deep and meaningful conversation that way. When it's just the two of us, we can give each other our full attention, which I really value. It also feels more comfortable to share personal thoughts or problems, which might be harder to do in a group setting. That said, group conversations can be fun too, but they're usually more lighthearted rather than deep, so I tend to save deeper conversations for one-on-one chats.
Question 4. Do you prefer to communicate face-to-face or via social media?
I'd prefer to communicate face-to-face. I think there are certain aspects of in-person communication that social media simply can't match. For example, you can see each other's genuine reactions and body language in real time, which helps you adjust what you say accordingly. Sometimes these nonverbal cues can say even more than words. Besides that, I feel it's easier to understand each other's true intentions when communicating in person. For instance, some people may sound quite blunt, but they actually mean well, and that nuance can easily be lost in text messages.
Question 5. Do you argue with friends?
I think it's unavoidable, to be honest. I have a couple of close friends, and we've definitely had disagreements at times. Since we all have our own ways of thinking, it's not always possible to agree on everything, so arguments are quite natural. I remember I used to live near one of my friends. I was on the second floor, and she was on the fourth. We often hung out together, but we had very different attitudes towards time. I'm quite punctual, even on weekends, whereas she tends to be more laid back. Because of that, I often had to wait for her, which became quite frustrating over time. Eventually, we reached a breaking point and had an argument, and we didn't speak to each other for a few days. However, once we had both calmed down, we learned to understand and accept each other better. I became a bit more flexible, and she made an effort to be more punctual. In a way, I think experiences like that can actually strengthen friendships, because you learn more about each other. I'd like to talk about Lily, who is one of my closest friends. We've known each other for a very long time, probably over 20 years, so it's hard to keep track exactly. We first met in primary school. She was one of the top students in the class, so she really stood out to me. However, we didn't become close friends until secondary school. At that time, we were assigned to work on a project together, and she helped me a lot. After that, we started spending more time together, studying and hanging out, and gradually became very close. I'd say she's one of the most important people in my life, apart from my family. Even though we now live in different cities, we still keep in touch regularly, and whenever we talk, it feels like the distance doesn't exist. What I value most about her is that I can talk to her about almost anything, from my weaknesses to the things I'm proud of. She's my go-to person whenever I feel confused or lost. I really trust her because she always gives me honest advice, even when it's hard to hear, and that helps me make better decisions. So yeah, I feel really lucky to have someone like her in my life. We don't get to see each other very often these days, but the connection is still there, and I think that's what makes our friendship so special.
Question 1. Do you think it is better for children to have a few close friends or many casual friends?
From my experience, I'd say it's better for children to have a few close friends, as the bond between them can be much deeper. When children have a smaller circle of friends, they tend to spend more time together, hanging out, sharing their thoughts, and getting to know each other better, which helps strengthen their relationships over time. On the other hand, if they have too many friends, they may not have enough time to build meaningful connections with each person. As a result, those friendships can remain quite superficial. I also believe that close friendships are more likely to last and can provide strong emotional support as children grow older, whereas casual friendships tend to fade over time.
Question 2. Do you think a child's relationship with friends can be replaced by that with other people, like parents or other family members?
I don't think so, because friendships provide a different kind of emotional support compared to relationships with family members. Friends are often people we choose ourselves, so we may feel more comfortable sharing certain thoughts with them. For example, there are some issues that I would discuss with my friends but not with my parents, such as my thoughts about switching careers. It's an important decision, and while I do need advice, I might hesitate to tell my parents because I don't want to worry them. They tend to be more cautious and may try to discourage me from taking risks. In contrast, my friends might be more open-minded. They may either support my ideas or give me honest feedback, which helps me look at the situation from different perspectives.
Question 3. What are the key qualities that make a friendship strong?
I think trust is probably the most important factor. You need to feel that you can rely on the other person and share personal things without being judged. At the same time, mutual understanding also plays a big role. Friends don't always have to agree on everything, but they should at least respect each other's opinions and be willing to listen. And I guess consistency matters too. Even if you're both busy, making the effort to stay in touch and support each other over time really helps strengthen the relationship.
Question 4. Why is it important to have friends with different interests and backgrounds?
I think it's really valuable to have friends with different interests and backgrounds because it exposes you to new perspectives. You get to see how other people think and live, which can really broaden your mindset. It also makes conversations more interesting, since you're constantly learning something new instead of hearing the same ideas over and over again. And I guess, in some cases, it can even challenge your assumptions, which is how real learning happens and helps you grow as a person.